Okay, I think we can start. So I'll keep it a little short tonight. Through circumstances out of my control, have to leave early. So to keep it kind of short. Uh, I want to say I had a sort of a dream with Father Patrick in it recently, and it was really powerful. And it's just had me thinking about Father Patrick. And I wanted, it's been so neat remembering, once things are gone, I don't think of them. It's over. And so I haven't thought of much or at all. And just thinking about him, and, you know, he didn't tell me if he thought I was neat or even dedicated for at least the first 10 years. He didn't say one positive thing about me. And about 10 years in, he'd slip something in. I'd be like, oh, okay, I didn't know. But then, and that went on for a while, and then the group grew and became, had mature people in it. And so then after that, he didn't want to hear about me at all. We'd get the business of confession out of the way, just confessing how full of crap I am. We'd get that out of the way, and then he'd say, okay, now tell me about the group. And I've been thinking about what he would say about the group, because one of the things he said after I really got to know him towards the end is that he never knew a group so devoted to God as our group. And he even said that even in the monastery, some of the people were not as devoted. And, there were he knew a lot of people's, this was back in the day, but he knew a lot of people's names. He would ask about you guys, like by name. How's your nature mystic Kim? And how's that delightful Anne, who's so, if Anne isn't overworked, I hope you guys she's been a little overworked again. I'm hoping she's not here tonight, but I don't know if you'll ever meet a more delightful person. It's weird. And don't try to be delightful. I would fail at being Anne. I'm not delightful. If I get more on fire, I don't just get more delightful. But she does. And I want to lay in her lap. As we get older, I might, younger it felt weird, but I wouldn't mind just laying on her lap one night, just on her couch. I would, because it just feels like this love coming off of her, and it's like a motherly, sort of cosmic motherly love that she radiates. And he wanted to know about her, and there were lots of Jill and a lot of people he wanted to know about. And he was and he didn't tell me till the very end that he'd never known any group that was so devoted to God in his whole time as a monk doing spiritual guidance. And I wanted to remind you all of that. I haven't said that. I used to bring it up a lot when he was around, So when you get grinding it out and you're up against things you think suck, just remember, the only reason Cindy, I hope this is okay, calling me, and she had something come up in her life that shook her prayer life a little. And she wasn't getting as deep as she was used to. And she shed legit serious tears about this. She said, I don't want to lose what I have. And the tenderness and the love and the care for the place she had come to in prayer. And, if you didn't know her, you'd say, oh, you're too attached. But it was just loving it, like a deep love and value for having found this depth with God. And I could go on about, everyone, some of the very new people, you meet them when they come in, and that's really helped recently, the newer people that have come in the last few years, and seeing them grow, because I guess one of the things I'm trying to say is you can take for granted what you have, and you can also not realize that you're growing when you think you're not. You don't see it coming. It sneaks up on you. Remember, I used to say all this stuff a lot, and I kind of forgot to ever say it, but John of the Cross talks about how God will infuse things into you in secret. You don't see them. And, so you'll think I'm not growing and I'm not gaining. And you'll think I'm not getting it. but you're in there doing your prayer and meditation time and your inventory, but you think you're not getting anywhere. And then out of nowhere, a new dimension, a new subtlety, a new silence, a new sense of the sacred will come. Or you'll run into someone you haven't seen for many years, and there's almost no common ground, you'll realize, but it's because you've deepened and didn't even know you were deepening. And so you can be the last person in the world to see that you're growing. You can be the last person to know it's happening. And it's really, it's like watching the grass grow. If you leave for a while and come back, okay, it grew, but if you watch every day, you'll swear it's not growing at all. It's like watching that pot boil. And so I want to just say, hey, since Father Patrick isn't here to remind me, thanks for the dream. Uh, it's rare, what you guys are doing. And Crystal recently just, won't give details, but just calling me and the level of commitment that she's coming to about the path. And it's just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's what Christ taught. And it's what the entire early church was like for the first 300 years. There was no different kinds of Christianity. There was only this. And then Rome endorsed the Christian religion. And then all of a sudden you had hundreds of thousands of people that were Christian and no saints to guide them. And that dual culture of the church producing saints, the Christian church producing saints in every generation, that has continued till now. But then there's been a dual culture of people that they go to church, but they don't spend any real time in prayer, and they're not really dedicated to the path. And there's a dual culture there that happened in Christianity, and it's grown, it's still there today. And it's not my place to judge it. I think they're saved. I think they have Christ. I think the world's better because they found Christ. I think it's all good. But what Christianity was for the first 300 years, there was no sort of exception made for nominal Christians. That's all Jesus taught, was serious devotion to God. That's all there ever was. And so what we're doing is new and old. It's just a return to the same level of commitment, but it seems new in the sense that you can go to many churches and find very little of it. It's still beautiful and good, but you can find very little of it. And so I just wanted to say, hey, if you're over there, you're a nature mystic and you're worried you're not doing enough inventory, or, hey, take it easy a little bit. There are monks and nuns taking it easier than you. There are. And getting less out of it than you. There are some that are getting more. We would be very careful. Okay, and so just a few things I want to say, and then I'll leave, and you guys can share. Remember that underneath everything, it's about your sincerity. It's about the yes that you're saying. And look, there's dangers with this. I've seen people abuse it, but if you're not trying to abuse it, if you are sincere, if you can't, I don't know, I don't want to say things people might do, because if you can't give all your life to God in every area of your life right now, if there's some areas you withhold, some things you withhold, don't think that disqualifies you from Christ and from God. It's something Father Patrick taught me, because I read John of the Cross and thought, I'm disqualified until I've given up every single thing that's in the way. And there were things that at that time I can say yes now, but there were things at that time I could not say, yes, I'll give you this. I just couldn't. I couldn't. And I really couldn't. And I'd read John of the Cross and come back feeling like that means I'm cut off from God. And Father Patrick would say, oh, don't think of it like that. That's not it. So what is it? And I don't know. I didn't ask him, well, what is it? I don't remember asking that question, but I've thought about this endlessly, and it always comes back to, there's like your true will, And then there's your, this is Paul, if you read Paul, there's your true will and what you really want. And then there's what you do when you're not paying attention. Or when you get home from work and you just want an hour of reward for the hard work you've done. It's good, just like I'm taking some time out. And like, I don't care if God is calling me, just let me have a minute. And, first of all, God may very well be wanting you to have that minute. God may very well be wanting you to have that. That's the thing. And then if God isn't, you have to understand that your true yes underneath that is more, it turns the wheel more than the lie that says no. That's what you have to know. And I'll speak more confidently as I get more anchored in certain stages, but this has been an experiment I've run by being such an imperfect person and just unable to say yes, sometimes for years on something that I kind of thought I should say yes on, and just being unable, willing, but not willing yet. And remember Jesus said, which one does God's will? The one that says, yes, I will, and then runs off and doesn't. And the one that says, no, I won't, and then changes his mind and does. Well, just put yourself in that camp. Don't be in prayer saying yes and then not. Just say no, but I promise I will if you'll just heal me and get me to that place. If you'll just get me there, I'll do it. And that's what I've told God. It's like, look, I'm sorry. But I want to be different, and sometimes I can't be even though I want to be. And sometimes I just am not ready. But I give you permission to heal the things in me that make me not ready. And if you're showing up for your prayer life and you're praying that sincerity, I know it can be abused, but we're not talking about people abusing grace. Just if you're sincere, it's going to come. It's going to wear, some of the stuff I wouldn't let go of, it just eroded one day and was gone. And I didn't do any work on it, except once in a while feel guilty for saying no. And honestly, sometimes feel too guilty. But then worried. What if I die and I never let it go? What if this experiment isn't, there was concern there. There was worry. But if you think about it, the whole thing is faith. It's Christ. It's Christ who heals us. It's Christ who heals us. If you grow in faith, you're growing in the faith of Christ. It's literally a participation in Christ. The goods that we come to are a participation in Christ's goods. We don't get them on our own. We don't earn them. We don't make them happen through the force of our will. That is sorcery. That is anti-Christ. If you could make some good happen in your life and you don't do it with God, it's a sin. It's the whole Christian teaching is a life lived in and with God's power. It's like an absurdity to say I could do it without God. No one cares. They would say, but then you're doing it without God, and that's the point, is you're supposed to be doing it with God. Like everything with God. So it's just God. It's God. And so, the virtues you should be practicing the most are faith and hope. It's hope. I spend a great deal of time in hope. Hope for that next depth. Hope for that next unseen gift, that secret gift God is growing. Hope for that next level of sacredness, that next level of silence or freedom from the world. And when you're in hope, you're working. That's your work. That's your work. Faith without works is dead. Hope is work. And believing God will get you there is work. The good works. Say it works. It's works. But it's Christ's hope you grow in. And it's Christ's faith you grow in. And if we get that confused, it makes the path harsh and seems unworkable. So I've been texting with someone throughout this week about this very topic, and another person brought it to my mind. It's about 3 or 4 people, and so I thought worth saying. Christianity gives you, um, if you take the whole Old Testament and New Testament, read it all together, Christianity is a revelation from God of an impossible goal. It's a revelation from God of an impossible standard for you to live up to. You are called to be apart from the world. You are called to be separate from the world. You are called to be detached from the world, free from the world's values. You're called to perfect moral behavior. You're called, and God Himself calls us to this. And if you believe it, then you take on that call and you say, oh my gosh, I really am called to this. And then in very short order, you realize you can't live up to it. You can't. And the workaround in the New Age for us was God doesn't care about that stuff. God doesn't care about that stuff. You kind of pretty much live however you want, as long as it's all adults and they're all consenting, it's all okay. And so that's how we got around it. Or the sin isn't real, so it doesn't matter. But the workaround in Christianity is you're called to this perfect place, but you cannot get yourself there. But Christ can grow it in you through grace. If you're willing to have a lifetime of that happening. If you're willing to let it be a way of life that you're being called towards. Thomas Keating, I don't know if he ever wrote it in any of his books, but in one of the talks he gave, I remember listening, and I haven't listened to many of his talks, but I remember this talk, and he was saying of the people he saw become saints. And he had witnessed many people become saints. But he said, and this is normal especially for lay people, although he was talking about monks and nuns, all in the later years of their life, they followed a natural progression of devotion to God, and you get a few wrinkles, some hair comes out, some hair grows where you don't want it, and so you start giving up a little bit of that vainglory because you kind of can't, you kind of have to. There's some things you give up because they go. And if you're aging well in a holy way, you start to realize they're going anyway. And you start to cooperate with letting go. I have gray hair. It makes me, I'm old, but I'm not as old as I look. But, as soon as I got the gray, you're ignored. There's a certain population segment that just ignores you. They literally ignore you. It's amazing. You're still, I feel like Clint, I feel younger than I did 2 years ago by a lot. But they see you as old and they look through you and ignore you. And that's good. You want this if you're trying to let go of reputation and standing. So all these things naturally happen. So anyway, he just said he's seen a lot of people become saints and they just get brighter and brighter towards the twilight of their lives. Doesn't that sound gentle and loving for everybody to grow into? That sounds doable, And then you start losing it anyway, so stop caring about that. I don't care about that so much anymore. It's ugly anyway. Who cares? It's easy to let that go. Life's built to help us do it, is what I'm thinking. But so Christianity gives us this impossible goal that we can't live up to, and knowing you can't do it, and responding with, then I'll let God instead of then I give up, is the entranceway into the grace-filled life. That's the entranceway in. I accept the call. I will grow towards this. I will give my life to this. This is worthy of my life. This is worthy of my life. Nothing in the world is, but this is worthy of my life. This truth and this calling, and I will give myself to it and find myself in right relationship with my Creator. And I will allow God to grow me into that since I cannot do it through my own efforts. Since I cannot. And the person I've been texting all week is struggling, but they're struggling because they've accepted the call, but they're trying to be where someone who's way more advanced than them is. And they're trying to be that way now. And they simply cannot do it. They can maybe think, okay, I'm just going to be like that. And then they try, and then they can't, and then they try harder, and they can't. And instead of just saying, oh, I'm just not there, let me be where I am, and dig that, they find themselves stressing and pushing. They just haven't yet got that it's God's thing and not theirs. And they're looking at the form of someone else, like what if I did that with Anne? What if I thought, I'm just not that delightful? Or what if I said, like, I'm just not as into nature as Kim? Like, I don't experience the sacredness of nature the way Kim does. And so then I have to. What if I just ground that out in my ego all day, daily, sort of berated myself, tried really hard to be that way? I would stop growing. Kim would become my God. And God would no longer be my God. Or what if I had my own ideas about how my life ought to look and how it ought to be, and I ground that out, try to make it look the way I want? That is the sin of pride. That's pride. Jesus is God incarnate, and he said, "Not my will, but yours be done." I don't want to go suffer on the cross and get hung. I don't want to do this. If there's any way, God, this could pass, let it pass. But nevertheless, your will be done, not mine. That's the example. So you can see that, like, human effort applied towards divine things is just another version of the Old Testament Jewish experiment of utter misery trying to become holy through your own works. And it's not delicate enough, and it's not subtle enough, and it's not listening enough. It's forced. I was telling someone else recently that for my spirituality presently is walking a razor's edge of making sure I'm putting no effort whatsoever into it. It's like none. If I try at all, I miss. I'm listening. I'm not just, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to watch a show tonight, but I'm just saying I'm not just watching TV, like right now at least. But what I'm trying to say is it's a razor's edge of not trying, but allowing. And as long as I'm not trying and I'm allowing, I'm right where they want to be. And it's like, it feels to me like 1 degree either way, and I'm missing it. But it's effortless, except it takes a lot of discipline not to try to effort, because I'm used to efforting. Then if I turn that into a work, it gets all weird. So it's just like, it's so out of my hands. It's so out of my hands. So you're given an impossible calling to be saints in this life. And then you find you can't do it, and you say, okay, God, I'll let you do it. And that's the Christian life. That's the Christian life. If it gets hard, you're comparing yourself to someone ahead of you. You're comparing yourself to someone different than you and trying to be something you're not. You're comparing yourself to an ideal you hold of yourself and pushing that, and it's killing you. Or you're confusing periods of purification with not being very deep. And it would pay maybe to just remind yourself of, I'm sure it's any of the saints, but my favorite is Teresa of Avila, who, if you read her in the later stages, she's not done getting worked over by God. It's not. You don't want to think of it as because you're still getting worked over, you must not be advanced. It's not at all what the saints talk about at all. It just isn't. They may be holier as they go, but what the impurities that are left are treated as very important by the Holy Spirit. And so they're getting worked over all the way till they're in. And so some people will interpret them being purified as them being wrong. It's who God loves, God prunes, Jesus says. Who God loves, God prunes. If I'm being pruned, I do now know deeply that I'm in God's grace. I feel very secure there. I'm so grateful for it. I love it. I'll take the bliss or anything else, whatever comes, but I love that I'm pruned because I know I'm not done. So then I don't want to not be pruned. I want that. Last thing, I got to make it really short because I have an appointment in 4 minutes. Hypothetical person named Nathan. It's a real person, but I won't mention their name. You don't know them, but I'm on YouTube now. Sin's tricky, man. I know a person who gave everything to God in every area of their life in the most radical way it's possible to do it, except in the area of sexual sin. And this person enjoys a level of enlightenment that is quite profound, but they're excluded from, I don't think God sends anyone to them to help. They're excluded from any usefulness on the planet because their sexual sin is immoral and wrong. And they refuse to see it. What's my point? You're worried about you watching TV? You're worried about what? What are you worried about? What are you doing that's so bad? Like, okay, maybe it's bad. Maybe, not TV, but just something. Maybe it's bad. I don't know. But it's bad in that moment when you're doing it. Don't think that every other area of your life is excluded from God's grace because there's an anchor somewhere that you haven't given to God. Don't think that way. Don't think the way the early Christian heretics did and think, if that's true, then let's have orgies. Because some early Christians got into orgies. They were like, well, then if I'm not excluded from God, let's have fun, like don't do that. But I don't think anyone here is going to do that. But don't think, because there's an area where you say no, every other area is then excluded from God. It's not that way. Anywhere God can enter in your life, God enters in your life. Anywhere God could pour love into you, God is pouring love into you. And if you're saying no in a certain area, it's a problem. But don't let it be a problem in other areas of your life. Don't burden yourself with it. Don't hurt yourself with it. And I've done that after I read the saints in the beginning. I did that to myself and hurt myself with it. That's why I tell people don't read John on the cross. I've watched more people hurt themselves with it than not. And then when I got a teacher who understood John on the cross, he said, John on the cross is a terrible writer, and it is impossible to understand him without teaching. Without instruction, he said, you will hurt yourself. And he said, everyone knows it. So don't hurt yourselves, man. Remember what Father Patrick thought of you. This group. And think of how many people you could get online and they're like, man, if I could just get where I'd meditate every day, I just won't yet. They're not there yet. And you guys are like, I'm beating myself up because I shortened it to 40 minutes today because it was hard. I mean, remember the perspective, you guys. Okay.